Hello, this is Chris Cooper, and a big welcome to the Business Elevation Show. It's great to be back with you for yet another week. It's actually episode 620 this week with Michael Glauser, and we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, happiness, and lifting communities. And I think you're going to find this a fascinating conversation. Michael's got an incredible history. And before I tell you much more about that, I'd like to also say a big thank you to my guest last week. We had Ted Scambos on the show. Ted is also from the United States, from the university in Colorado, and an absolute world expert when it comes to understanding and researching glaciers. So he'd actually visited Antarctica 24 times on expeditions and was talking to us about the significance of the Thwaites Glacier and also about the experiences of being on the ice with other leaders, other and teams that he's been leading, and what it's like to live and be in that environment. So it was very inspiring last week, but also, yeah, a little concerning as well when you look at what's happening with the climate and the impact of climate change on ice. So this show is really about bringing to you really exceptional leaders who tend to be very heartfelt as well, and really care about doing good in the world. So they care about contributing to improving the situation as opposed to adding to the challenges of the world. So I'm introducing more and more people to you who are can inspire you to step up in whatever it is, in what from small ways to significant ways to do your part, because we can't rely on the politicians to sort this out for us. And what I've noticed through 14 years of the show and the community, the Elevation Collective community I lead, is there are so many people who are doing exceptional things, doing really, really good work to help to improve people, to improve life and situations around the world, but they don't get the attention in the media that the big issues and do. So that's what we care about, just giving you the confidence and the realization and the inspiration to step up and realize that we can make a difference. We can all make a difference. So Michael today is an entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a business consultant and a university professor. And he's built successful companies in retail, wholesale, and educational industries, from startups to multinational enterprises he's worked in. Today, he serves as executive director of the Center for Entrepreneurship in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. He's also the director of the Seed Poverty Alleviation Program, and that helps thousands of people around the world to improve their standards of living and benefit their communities through entrepreneurship. He's published a number of books on entrepreneurship: Glorious Accidents, The Business of Heart, and Main Street Entrepreneur, which chronicles his 4,000-mile bicycle ride across America to interview 100 remarkable entrepreneurs. He's also written his latest book, which is called One People, One Planet: Six Universal Truths for Being Happy Together, which includes, as mentioned, six key principles, which we'll talk about in a moment. Michael, a big welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I've been looking forward to visiting with you and excited to be here today.
Great talking to you. And you're at the University or Utah State University. We've had one of my clients actually, Tessa White, is a member of the university too, leading the board of trustees. What's it like working in such a large university? Because I think you've got about 35,000 students.
Yeah, it's a large statewide university. It's called the Land Grant College, which means we're responsible for educating all the students across the state of Utah. And we have about 30 satellite locations. About half of them live in Logan on our main campus. And, our mission is to educate the people across the state. And it's a phenomenal culture we have in the Huntsman School of Business. I mentioned to you earlier, I came on a 5-year agreement and I'm there now year 15. I like it so much. And each year I keep going back. And we're doing some amazing things. And it's just a joy to be there. It's a real gift to be able to work in the Huntsman School of Business for me.
And are you from the Utah area originally?
Originally from Utah, yes.
Yeah.
But I've lived in, various places, Indiana and North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia. I've lived overseas in the Middle East and I've come back to Utah.
And you're just telling me that you yourself and your wife like your endurance sports.
She loves endurance sports, and I follow her around. Whatever she plans, I try to keep up with her.
And did she join you on the 4,000 mile cycle ride? Did you do that together?
She did. We've done it twice.
Have
The
you?
first
Wow.
time she was training for a triathlon, so she would bike with me about 100 miles a day, and then the next day she would swim and run. And she did that across America. Last summer we did the same ride, and she rode the entire distance every day, nearly 4,000 miles with me.
Ooh, I think that's incredible. That's incredible. And to tell me, you just come from Cusco in Peru. What were you doing out there?
Yeah, we have our
Amazing place.
Seed Poverty Alleviation program is a worldwide program. We recruit about 100 students a year and we place them around the world. They teach families that live in poverty how to build small businesses and improve their household income. The goal is to help them double their income and get out of that low poverty class.
Yeah.
And so we have operations in Peru. We've been there for quite a few years. And I spent time in Trujillo and then spent this last week mostly in Cusco, where we're opening a new operation there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful place, isn't it? With such amazing history. As you said it to me earlier, it's a magical, isn't it?
Very magical place. In
Yeah. I've
fact,
got.
the Plaza de Armas, the main square, is a beautiful town square where people hang out all day and all night there. And we were there one day and had a rainstorm. And after the rainstorm, there was a beautiful rainbow. It was actually a double rainbow. And it went from the top of one church on the square over the square to the top of the other church. So, of course, the people feel very strongly they're a spiritual people and they feel like that was a sign, a
Yeah.
gift to them. And it was just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah. You take me back. So tell me a bit about your life growing up and your background. I'm just interested in how that might have impacted what you're doing today.
So I was very fortunate to have a wonderful family, great parents, middle class family. I have three brothers and two sisters. And my father was a business owner and an entrepreneur. He owned a wholesale food distribution company. So he was selling products into hotels, convenience stores, grocery stores. And I watched him work over the years. I watched him get up early and come home late and saw the good times and the hard times. And that's all I knew was, having a father that worked at his own business. He had never worked for anyone else. And so, I learned a lot from him. He taught me a lot. And being in the wholesale food company, I had a lot of sayings that impacted me. And one of them was that you make money in the purchase, not in the sale, because the margins are so slim that he was always trying to build partnerships and get cost plus contracts and pick up economies of scale. And so that's just one of the things he used to say. And so when I was at college age, I had this desire to learn how to create really cool companies. I thought it'd be amazing to figure out how to create great products and services that people really needed to meet their needs and improve their lives. But even more important, I wanted to build organizations where people really loved working and wanted to be there and try to figure out the human, relations systems so that they were really positive envies of the industry. And so I went to school and that's what I studied.
So from that early, you initially started building entrepreneurial businesses rather than went and worked for a company.
Well, what I did is I went straight through. I did a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD, and
Wow.
started teaching business. And I was still a young kid. I was in my late 20s, and I'd never really built a business. And I remember walking into my first class. It was an executive MBA class. I'm very well educated now. I'd studied all about organizations. I wrote my name on the blackboard, Dr. Michael Glauser, and turned around and I was the youngest guy in that room by probably 15 years. They were all executives coming back to school. Like I quickly made the decision that, I've got to leave the safe harbor of academics and go build some companies. And so it was that, the influence of my father and my family and my education that led me to building companies for real and getting out into the real world, which I did. I stayed in that university position for about 4 years and then left and built companies for the next 15 years.
Yeah, I think it's really important, isn't it, for academics to get that business experience.
It's been great. Going back to the university has been great because I have many stories to tell about every business principle. from real life companies that we've started and built and sold. So it's been wonderful.
So tell me about some of those companies that you've built and sold.
Well, my wife has a degree in community health education, so fitness and nutrition, and is really concerned about the health of all of us, our family and our communities. And I have experience in business strategy and scaling organizations, and so we wanted to build something that we could both be excited about. So we created a company that sold a frozen dessert product that was extremely healthy with no fat and low calories. And it was back in the 80s and 90s, one of our first operations we created. And, people were really getting into the health foods at the time and concerned about, fitness and nutrition. It was the
Seem to have lost connection. You set up a number of successful companies. Do you want to tell us about the dessert business that you set up with your wife?
Yeah, so this was in the late 80s and 90s, and there was a big health push, particularly here in America. People were running 10Ks and marathons and riding century bike rides and trying to eat healthy foods. And yet we were concerned that the desserts available that were like the flavor. And we thought if we could create some frozen dessert products like a substitute for ice cream that had low fat or no fat and low calories, and maybe infuse some yogurt cultures in there to aid digestion, that would be a winner. So we spent quite a bit of time and developed a product line of about 30 products, and build a successful wholesale and retail company in the food service industry. We had a very vertical integrated organization. We created our own products, distributed our own products. We wholesaled the products and we retailed those products. And so that was a very exciting venture that we built and ran for about 10 years.
So how many people were in the organization? Was this
So
a
we had about 600 employees when we sold the
wow,
company.
wow.
And it was just a phenomenal experience for me as a university professor trying to get real world business experience. It was kind of frightening to leave the university, a safe job, and try to build a company. And if it failed, then I'd be the guy coming back to teach who tried to build businesses and failed. It just wouldn't have worked. So I felt a ton of pressure to build an envy of the industry and be really successful. But more important than that, we were just passionate about health and fitness. We wanted to give people better options. And we loved what we were doing. The passion was strong, the purpose was strong, and that's kind of what drove us through those 10 years.
So that really the purpose really helped. Is there anything else that it's you clearly picked a new or created a niche of a product there. What else would you put down to the success of
Well, I think the
business?
mentors and partnerships that we had were really critical. My wife knew all about the food products, and I knew about
Mm.
scaling companies, but we didn't know anything about retail space or contracts or legal negotiations or real estate. And so I was able to bring in some phenomenal partners as investors early on that really knew that, they had shopping centers, they knew contracts, and they were just phenomenal partners, and we couldn't have done it without them. And we created, this was kind of interesting. We're a new company. We don't have a track record. So investors want, control and own 50 or 60% if they invest in that company. And they knew that I didn't want to give up ownership, but they had a need also. They wanted some passive income and they wanted kind of a guaranteed modest return. And so we created this amazing win-win relationship. A lot of investors take advantage of early entrepreneurs and they get great deals, but the entrepreneur isn't excited about it. The entrepreneur feels he or she's been taken advantage of. But the great investors, know that everyone has to be happy with the deal. And so what we did is we created an equipment leasing company and they put their money into the equipment leasing company. And the equipment leasing company then built the stores and we guaranteed them a 7% annual return, a minimum return, or 30% of the revenue of the profits from each store. And so I was able to maintain control and ownership of the food company. And the leasing company was a financial partner of the business. And they were just so helpful. Couldn't have done it without them. And after we built about 10 stores, the cash flow was so strong that we didn't need to use that leasing company any longer. And they said, "Hey, Mike, we helped you get started. Why don't you let us convert the debt to equity now that you have a track record?" And so they agreed to convert all of their investments to about 20% ownership, which means I still maintain control. And we completely eliminated all the debt. We were a debt-free company from 10 stores up to almost 80 stores, building with cash flow. And the buyers that came looking, kicking the tires, were all impressed that there was no debt. And we, were dominating most of the industries, the regions we were in as number one or number two in that market. So it was really just a really fun experience where we learned a lot. We made some mistakes, but we made it work in the end.
Amazing. And what made you decide to exit that business?
I never put it up for sale, but we had three buyers show up after about 9 or 10 years and made offers on the company. And, I was ready to go back. I felt like I now had my education in the real world, and I was ready to go back to writing books and speaking and teaching at universities. And so, I had some opportunities to go back to several universities that liked the fact that I had business training as well as academic training in the field of entrepreneurship, which has become an exploding area in academia for the last 20 years or so.
Yes, yes. And you really care about social entrepreneurship, don't you? About doing
Yeah,
good.
after I sold that
Yeah.
company, I was courted by several universities, and I went back and looked at their curriculum, and what they were teaching about entrepreneurship was not related at all to what I'd done in the real world. They were business professors, very little business experience. They were bringing, theories from strategy and management into the startup world. And so I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a project. I called it the Oral History Project, where I'm going to go out and interview hundreds of entrepreneurs and collect their life stories from the minute they conceived their idea up until, sustainability. And then I'm going to use these stories to create training programs and curriculum and write books. And so we launched that, right about 2000, year 2000, after I sold the company. And we probably interviewed maybe 1,000 entrepreneurs now. And so we use those stories and update those stories regularly. And so we've written some books based on those stories. We've created the curriculum at the university based on those stories. And I have a tech ed company now called My New Enterprise, where we offer curriculum to other high schools, colleges, and agencies, NGOs in the space of entrepreneurship.
And do you use that? So do you use that content? This is a remarkable initiative, the Seed program
Uh,
that you found. Is that linked in to all of that wisdom that you
yeah,
acquired?
Yeah. So what we do is we find an entrepreneur that, is leading an industry and starting to pick up market share that's successful. And we create an agreement. Hey, we'll film you and create a short documentary for you for free if you let us use your content in education. And it's a great win-win relationship. And then we take these interviews and we cut the interviews up into buckets, topics, and put them in all these different buckets. We have about 40 modules on everything you can imagine about starting a company from A to Z. And then we pull from that database to create curriculum for the seed program, for universities, for high schools, for corporations, and so on. So we have a large database. We're content producers, is what we are.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So how does that work with, for example, the initiatives that you're doing, overseas around the world? Do you have examples? If you're working in, you mentioned Peru there.
Yeah,
Do you have videos of entrepreneurs in Peru who have been successful? How does that?
yeah, we have the programs in both English and Spanish. So everywhere we go, we interview entrepreneurs, and then we have a curriculum for our seed students. We select, like I said, we try to find about 100 students a year, and we put them through a 14-week training program. Um, it's one college semester, and they have to learn all about the skills of entrepreneurship, how to teach classrooms entrepreneurial topics, and then how to mentor one-on-one. And we have a curriculum we've created to train those students. And then we have a curriculum we've created for them to use teaching the families around the world, which is a little simpler curriculum. We work at the low end of the pyramid. These are people that live in poverty. And so it's pretty basic. It's kind of like lemonade training, lemonade stand entrepreneurship. We
Yeah.
teach them the basics of creating a product, of buying right product, figuring out pricing, bookkeeping and accounting, marketing, product diversification, increasing revenue through better marketing strategies, lower cost neighborhood marketing strategies. And so, yeah, we have many courses we have created and can create from our database.
And do the people who are delivering the training, do they make a living from doing that? Are they able
Yeah,
to, yeah,
yeah,
be
many of them
self-sufficient?
have probably the average around the world in every country that people at the poverty level might be earning 100 to 200 US dollars a month for a family of three or four or five. And if we can get them up to 500 or 600 a month, it moves them up into the lower middle class, and they can build a nicer home. They can maybe even buy a car. But what they all want to do, they all want to send their kids to school. That's the number one objective we see from every family we teach. And I'll give you an example. I was just before Peru, I was in Cape Coast, Africa, in Ghana, and we had a woman named Mary, Mother Mary. She's taking care of her granddaughter. Her daughter wasn't able to, and she found out she could go to hotels and buy the used linen, so bed sheets, pillowcases. About every few years they upgrade the linens, and she was buying those very inexpensively and making clothing. But she had to put those clothes into these, black garbage bags and carry them for about a mile, and then ride a bus for 20 or 30 minutes and sell them off the street. And we helped her acquire a little piece of property and build a cement slab and put a container on there so she could actually have a store and leave all of her products in the store and not have to carry them every day for an hour, on the streets and on the bus. And we were just there. She went from a couple $100 a month. She's earning about $600 a month now,
Great.
US dollars, which is really incredible in that location. And so we have hundreds of stories like that.
And now, is there any areas that you wouldn't go to? I mean, I just came in June. I was in Kenya, and the area the valley that I was in for a while, the average income was $18 a month.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
that's
so
that's extreme poverty, but the cost of living is a lot less too. They can figure out how to eat off whatever
yeah,
they're earning somehow. It's sad, but they're pretty happy. People that live in poverty, they're not depressed, or it's just what they've learned to do. They've learned how to navigate their lives living in
yes,
poverty.
yes, yeah. So quite remarkable, isn't it? And it's eye-opening when you visit these places and you realize that the people have so little, but actually they welcome you with warmth, and you can with many you find a real connection with them, and they and many of them enjoy their lives, but they do experience some real challenge too.
Yeah, we're just
Yeah.
actually opening a new area in Eldoret, Kenya. It's the city of champions. It's where all the Kenyan runners,
Yeah.
world-class runners live. And And it's a little bit poorer area outside of the city and the villages, but
Mm.
we're excited about that area as well.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It sounds a wonderful thing you're doing. So how many countries are you in?
So right now we are in, let's see, we're in Peru, the Dominican Republic, Mexico. We have several locations in these countries. We're in the Philippines on two islands. We're in Manila and Cebu. We are in, we've been in Accra and Cape Coast, Africa in Ghana, and we're opening up Kenya, Eldoret. So we'll be in 7 or 8 countries.
Mm.
And we in each city we rent a house or a two-bedroom apartment. We put 4 students in each city, and we try to build a team of students. One might know marketing, one might know finance, one might be in business management, but we have students also in engineering and music and sociology. We've had about 50 different majors participate in this program over the years, about 1,000 students, and we've
Amazing.
worked with about 20,000 families.
It's remarkable. Yeah, it's remarkable. Yeah, what a wonderful, inspiring contribution. We've just got a couple more minutes to commercial break, but I'm just what you've done this 4,000 mile bike across America twice. Well, and
Yeah.
and and you were interviewing hundreds of entrepreneurs en route. Just briefly tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, we started in Florence, Oregon on the Pacific Ocean, and rode what's called the Trans-America Bicycle Trail, which was kind of dedicated in 1976 to celebrate the bicentennial of the country. And the idea was to celebrate the beauty of America. So it goes through 104 small towns, and it climbs through the mountains and national parks and two-lane highways, mostly through small towns. And what we were learning at the time, this was 10 years ago, the first trip, and we saw many entrepreneurs that were choosing lifestyle, and they would stay in small towns or move to small towns because they didn't like the crime and the pollution and the traffic. And then there were no jobs there, so they had to figure out how to build companies and create their own jobs. And we thought they could create some wonderful insights for startup entrepreneurs. And so we had a bus, a 35-foot bus, and a film crew, and we filmed the stories of 100 entrepreneurs, and then built and updated our curriculum, and then wrote the book Main Street Entrepreneur. We finished in Yorktown, Virginia, which is the site of the last battle of the Revolutionary War, right on the Atlantic Ocean. It took about 45 days, nearly 4,000 miles. The second trip we did last summer, we were raising money for the seed program. And what we asked people to do, we basically said, we love this program. We're committed to it. We're going to do something hard to show you that we want this to work. And if you would donate so much per mile, $1 per mile or a quarter per mile or $5 per mile, that would be awesome. So we created a brand called Pedaling to End Poverty, created a website, peddlingtoendpoverty.org, created a donation portal, and we had our press release printed in about 185 media outlets, and we had 23, unique radio and TV shows, and raised about, I think it was $527,000. And then when we returned, we got another $2 million worth of donations after that bike ride. So we were able to help create an endowment for seed scholarships. All the money went to the students.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. That's been hugely inspiring and fascinating and yeah, uplifting. After the commercial break, we're going to find out more about your latest book, One People, One Planet, and within it are 6 universal truths for being happy together. So it'd be lovely if we could explore some of those truths. So do join us after the break for what will be a very uplifting section, I would imagine. And if you've got if you're at home listening to this, or you have the ability to take out a notepad or even make a note on your phone, then just have a little think about maybe 2 or 3 little golden nuggets that you pick up from this conversation with Michael that you could utilize to help you to go away and make a difference. So we're back again with you all in just a couple of minutes. Do join us after the break. Hi, this is Chris Cooper. I'm back here with Michael Glauser, and we're talking about entrepreneurship, really social entrepreneurship, and but also happiness and lifting communities. And as you know, I'm always fascinated to bring people who are doing exceptional things around the world that maybe you've not heard about on the on the national media because there are a lot of people doing good. And right now, it just feels like it's a time to come together and utilize all the skills and knowledge and wisdom that you have in whatever field you have. Even if it's just day to day with your family or with your people at work, thinking about some of these sort of principles and thinking about how maybe you can help people locally through to maybe setting a vision to maybe make a difference and make your life really worthwhile when you look back on it and leaving a legacy as Michael and his dear wife have been doing. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about the latest book, One People, One Planet, which identifies 6 universal truths for being happy together. And don't we need that right now?
Yeah, people have wondered why, as a business professor running an entrepreneurship center, writing a book about happiness. But what we observed about 5 or 6 years ago is what we referred to as the epidemic of despair, which is taking over our country and even the world. And, the data was very clear that about 22% of the people in America, and it's similar in other countries, were struggling with an emotional illness, anxiety or depression, a diagnosable mental illness or emotional illness. And at the college level, it's 33%. A recent study by the CDC showed about 33% of people 18 to 25 are struggling with an emotional illness of some kind. And the problem was that, that had a huge impact on their careers and their jobs and their performance. And what the research is showing is that happiness and emotional well-being is a huge driver of success in your career and in your life. We used to think that if we were successful, we could be happy. So if we got a good education, we got a good job, we had a nice car, we had a nice house, we had a nice partner, a nice family, then we would be happy. And the research shows that that relationship at best is fuzzy and probably non-existent.
Yeah.
Non-existent. The other way around is what actually happens is people that are happy and emotionally stable just have more success. And there's tons of research to support that now. And so here's our thinking that if we're teaching people how to build companies that are solid and the envy of the industry and sustainable, we have to address the whole individual. We have to look at their emotional well-being and the whole person, the practices that they adopt that help them to be happy in life. And that's an important part of being successful as an entrepreneur. So we started looking at, the sources of information about human well-being and human happiness. And it was the most fascinating study for about 3 years for me. We cast a very broad net and first started looking at the spiritual leaders throughout time. So we went all the way back 5,000 years to the Hindu sages. And what did they write about happiness and civility and emotional well-being? And then we went to other world leaders. We looked at all the teachings of Buddha, who came, later, and then the teachings of Jesus and Muhammad. So we took the biggest world religions, looked at the original writings of these founders. We didn't look at all the conflict and the breakaway groups. We looked at the original texts and the original writings, and we kind of documented what they said. And then we went to the philosophers. We went to Confucius and the Asian philosophers, and then, the Greeks, Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, and the Romans, Seneca and Cicero, and then the European philosophers and US philosophers, and what did they say about human happiness? And then most important, for our audience, we looked at science. People tend to believe science and think it's sometimes more than what it really is, but we looked at all of the research in positive psychology and vetted a number of these principles that have been taught throughout history as actually having an impact on brain chemistry and human happiness and emotional well-being. So we pulled all that information together and created this project, Happiness Project, where we've created curriculum for universities, and we've created the book, One People, One Planet. So that's kind of the quick executive summary of why we moved into that happiness space.
And out of that, all of that research and reading, what are the 6 universal truths that you picked out of all of that content?
Well,
Must
there's
have been
about 10 or
substantial.
12, 10 or 12 concepts we identified. but we wanted to focus on the ones that had the most research, through modern science. It's kind of interesting that the field of positive psychology didn't exist until about 20, 25 years ago. And, up until then, psychology basically was based on a disease model. It was how do we cure people of these diseases? And there wasn't a lot of attention paid to how do we prevent these emotional challenges. And scientists would never take a concept from religion or philosophy and research it. It's just
Yeah.
taboo.
Yeah.
And so in 1998, there was a movement to, hey, let's start looking at how to keep people healthy in the first place. And now we have this wonderful field of positive psychology. But we looked at that research and picked what we thought were the six top concepts that had been around for thousands of years and had been vetted by research. And so the first one had to do with what we call the ego, or eliminating the ego, but it wasn't, an ego being really proud and really haughty and thinking you're a gift of the world. The ego was defined throughout history by the great sages and religious leaders as a complete composite of all of our self-perceptions. It's who we think we are. And so we all have these limiting perceptions that came about from feedback from our environment, our parents, our teachers, our peers, the media. And we think, oh, I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too thick, I'm too thin, I'm not good at music, I'm not good at math, I'm not a great student, I'm not a good communicator. And so the first thing you have to address is this duality of who we think we are versus who we have potential to be.
Yeah.
And when we realize we're a work in progress, and we're not perfect, but we have real value, and we can change how we think about ourselves and become a new person, reinvent ourselves at a higher level. That was step number one, is picking limiting self-perceptions, analyzing where they've come from. And then we have a program based on action that helps change those perceptions significantly. And that's one of the first steps, is to look at yourself.
Yeah.
The second thing that was interesting is, in the same way we create perceptions of ourselves that are illusions, they're fabrications, we do the same to other people. So we look at very superficial cues like color and race and religion and political affiliation and, size and weight. And because humans are so complicated, we don't know very little about them, but we use those superficial cues to construct a whole personality for them in the same way we constructed a personality for ourselves.
Mm.
And the research shows that if we realize that our perceptions and biases of others are fabricated and not real,
Yeah.
and though those people are more complex, and then we try to get rid of those biases, and we have some things people can do to make that happen, but we're a lot happier because we like people and we have a broader pool of friendships and affiliations. The next one, probably the most powerful one, was random good deeds daily. Getting up, instead of looking in the mirror and thinking me, and is my hair right? Do I look right? Am I dressed right? And did I say the right things? And you get up and say, hey, I'm going to look for ways to add value today. I'm going to look for people that might need some kindness. And then you go out and you pay the toll for the car behind you. You pay someone's bill in a restaurant. You shovel someone's snow. You help someone with their groceries. And about three of those kind acts a day have a huge impact on brain chemistry and how we feel about ourselves.
Mm.
Another big one was forgiveness. Holding anger and grudges is just absolute poison. It produces cortisol and
Yeah.
adrenaline at higher levels. It eliminates the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin, their feel-good brain chemicals. And so getting rid of grudges and realizing, hey, that person made a mistake. That doesn't mean they're going to be like that forever. I hope they cut me some slack. I'm going to cut them some slack, and just purging ourselves of these hard feelings. And Buddha had a great analogy. He said there's three kinds of people in the world with regard to anger. The first one is like a line etched in stone. That line will be there for a long, long time. The second person's like a line etched in dirt. That line will eventually dissipate. But the happiest person is a line etched in water. Once an offense is taken, it'll immediately dissipate and go away, and the person will not hold a grudge. So that was a huge one. There's hundreds of studies done on anger and hard feelings and forgiveness. It's a powerful one in raising our levels of feel-good chemicals. The last two quickly ones, just generosity, sharing our resources, not being attached to material possessions, because they help define this fabricated ego. We start thinking we are what we own. And
Yeah.
the last one was actually finding some people that need help more than just a daily good deed, but maybe someone that's suffering through a divorce or a job loss or a death, and deciding I'm going to be this person's friend and help them through this trial. So those are the ones we emphasize in the book.
Yeah. Oh, there's some of those really well. They're all hugely valuable, aren't they? And hugely important. And I like the way you've focused in on all of those because there are areas that everybody can relate to in their lives. In some ways, and I think that's the forgiveness is really interesting. I like that line etched in cement or dirt or in water. I think is a lovely way to look at it. I was having a conversation this week with an amazing lady who's coming up on the show we'll do next year, Laurie Layden, who'd been working out, Dr. Laurie Layden, she'd been working out for 10 years in Rwanda with the victims and the orphans from the terrible conflict over there, and also worked at some of your schools where there've been shootings. And we were just saying about how we both were living. We both actually had some surgery which had been where errors had occurred, and we both end up almost losing our lives. But the thing that we'd learned from it, both of us, was we both seemed to have taken it very lightly. We didn't sue, and we didn't get angry, and we didn't send off letters and see lawyers and things like that because by taking it lightly, we were able to move on from it. Well,
Yeah,
by hold, I guess we put in there, hold it in, you put in cement. You could make the rest of your life trying to get retribution, and then
yeah.
ruin the rest of your life. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and we kind of feel like we're hurting the other person by hating them, but we're really hurting ourselves. It's like drinking
Yeah,
poison and then waiting for that person to die. It's
yeah.
really, really toxic to hold that anger in.
It's kind of I think what's is probably linked into that is we build stories, don't we, in our subconscious about things,
Yeah,
and our perception of them. But those stories can have enormous weight, and they can put enormous weight on your own shoulders, can't they? But if you treat things more like water.
yeah. That's one of the interesting things we teach in our happiness classes. It's now called narrative therapy. And basically, we are a composite of all the stories we tell about ourselves. And narrative therapy teaches us to go back and say, well, okay, that was really hard, but has there been some value to our character from that experience, and redefine it instead of telling it and running our number over and over and over again about how horrible it was? We say, well, I learned a lot from that. I am a better person today because I suffered and I was able to learn about forgiveness. And so we rewrite our old stories, and that improves our emotional well-being. But even more important, we have to go out and create new stories. And that's
Mm.
why my wife and I kind of create these annual adventures. We want to have something that we talk about a lot, something we plan, something we go do, something we reflect on, and we can change our lives by changing our stories. And so we reconstruct stories from our past, and then we build new adventures and stories from our future, and we end up becoming a composite of those stories.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, and I think inspiring. I think for anybody listening to this, thinking what are those stories that are maybe holding you back, that you have about about others, maybe about yourself, and how could you rewrite them? And I think it's easy, isn't it, to sometimes you get opportunities to maybe do something, go different places, meet different people, and you might sit in your box. What you've done, Michael, you've been out and done two 4,000-mile cycle rides, for example, and you're just back from Peru. And I've been fortunate enough this year to go to Kenya, and I took one of my sons to Poland last year, and on a little sort of adventure to learn about the history of Poland. But it'd be easy not to do those things because they seem like a bit of effort. We took a group out to Kenya with us, but actually, when you look back on them, they give you so much energy and joy and reflection and deeper insight.
Yeah.
And you're not the same afterwards.
And I think part of our success doing that is we have to really look at our purpose in life.
Mm.
If we believe we're here to grow and develop and become decent people and make a difference, then we're more motivated to improve ourselves and change our stories and create new stories. And if we have no purpose and no meaning, why do those things?
So, what do you think then about? I think this is important. Important, I think. What it appears to be in the world right now is that people put huge weight on their opinion, and it seems like people's opinion on social media, the opinions of politicians. How should our relationship to what should our relationship be to opinion?
Well, what we try to teach, my wife is way better at this than I am, but there are many sides to every story. There's as many sides to a story or an issue as there are people and parties. And so rather than get caught up in, social media and sound bites, we always try to look at the full issue from all sides and all angles. And in fact, my wife has run a nonprofit called Engaged Informed Americans, where she puts people in the room and they address issues. And the rules are you can't get emotional. We have to present facts and research and where we're getting that data from. And you put liberal people and conservative people in a room and you have a decent discussion, and everyone leaves that room going, wow, this is more complicated than I thought it was. And
Mm.
I understand the other side's perspective. And so, the social media has done a lot of good. New technology has a lot of advantages, but it's done some really harmful things in the world. We're building more and more contacts, but they're very superficial contacts or superficial interactions. They're not deep friendships that we used to have in the world. And humans don't do well in isolation. And so if all of your friends are social friends and views and likes, but you don't really have those deep friends you go to lunch with every week, and you have each other's backs, you support each other through hard times, people become very, very lonely and, emotionally troubled. And so we have to somehow learn to take the advantages of new technology, but restore those relationships that we've had in the past that keep us stable. And social media is really good at dividing us, and sound bites and emotional statements that are not accurate, they're not complete, they're not thorough. And so we just have to be really careful where we get our stories and our news, and realize that it's our obligation to dig deeper and understand more completely, um, and have a civil dialogue. That's
Mm.
another, we call it the disease of incivility in the world, the crisis of incivility. There was a study just done across 17 industries, and 90% of the people surveyed said they'd seen a real mean, incivil act at work, and 50% say they see uncivil acts regularly. And it's led to this concept of quiet quitting, where people are looking for a new job. They don't like their organization. They're not fulfilled. They're not happy. It's a toxic work environment. And so this epidemic of despair and the epidemic of incivility are costing us dearly in our organizations. There's,
Yeah.
some estimates that we're losing 35% of our productivity because of these epidemics, and it's costing in the U.S. alone over $200 billion. So we just need to look more broadly at issues, learn to be investigators, learn to educate ourselves, and not be caught up in these emotional statements. They're really one-sided or inaccurate, only presenting one part of the issue.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Instability, it definitely feels like it's rising. How do we, when you're looking at the principles in your latest research and book, when it comes to organizations, what's your view on how organizations integrate some of these lessons and learnings for the benefit? Because where people are happy, they'll stay. And I completely, during the pandemic, people kind of realized actually how unhappy they were at work, and it
Yeah,
led to a great resignation, didn't it? As people spent
yeah,
more time with the families, they thought, crikey, I'm not spending enough time with my families and with my children, and it dawned on them what the system that they're in wasn't working for them.
yeah. Well, we now know that culture is extremely important in organizations. It's probably more important than strategy. We can have a great strategy, but a toxic culture, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And positive cultures are created through relationships. Um, and so these six principles we teach, we help people build better views of themselves and others, and more kind and caring and sharing relationships within organizations. We look at the whole individual, And there's been some studies done that people are saying, I want to work for an organization that doesn't silo me and have me just do my job and go home. I want an organization that cares about me as a whole individual and is concerned about my happiness and emotional health at
Yes.
work. And so we've created a whole program called Creating a Positive Culture for Everyone. And basically, we teach these principles of happiness and emotional well-being in a variety of formats to business leaders and graduate students and corporations. And when we start becoming more decent people and happy ourselves, which is all about relationships, every one of those six principles has to do with a relationship,
Mm,
that the culture improves. And directly related to that are the four big outcomes, as the recruiting improves, the actual hiring improves, the performance improves, and the satisfaction at work improve, the four big outcomes.
yeah. Michael,
Retention, recruiting, retention, satisfaction, and performance
yeah.
improve when the culture improves.
Yeah, I just realised we just got 4 minutes till close, but I'm just interested, what's next? What's next for you? I mean, you just seem to be an incredibly busy man. You're teaching at the university, you're leading the Seed project, you're writing books. It sounds like there's still quite an organization behind you. You're raising money, you're doing cycling adventures, and so what's next?
I love what I'm doing and plan on continuing to do writing and teaching and training and consulting. And my exit strategy in life is just to die. I'm not going to retire. I'm going to try to be as productive and active as I can, doing good and trying to become a more decent person. I got a long ways to go still, and I hope I have enough time to keep working on myself. But I love life.
Yeah.
I great family, great friends, great colleagues, and it's a real gift to be able to do what I'm doing.
Mike, it's been a hugely inspiring conversation. Do you have a final message you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I think the important things are to develop a purpose for our lives, to look outward, not inward, to get up and realize that we can do good deeds and it adds value to the world, but it helps us to see that we have value. And then I think to be focused and be intentional. You can't improve if you're really scattered. We have to be actors, not reactors, which means we have to have some specific goals and some focus and get out there and just make things happen.
Fantastic. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been absolutely remarkable. People check out onepeopleoneplanet.com and you can find out more information about the book. What I really love about the sound of this book is just how well researched it is and how well thought through it is. And those principles, those six principles that we focused on today, around your limiting self-perceptions and your perception of others, and doing random good daily deeds, forgiveness, generosity, and finding people that really need help that you can support and maybe mentor, who are going through different or just spend time with, who are going through different challenges in life. They can bring you enormous amounts of happiness. And I think when you're happy, then you're able to be more productive. And Michael's a great example. When you listen to him, he's going to keep on working. That's what's important to him. He loves his work. He loves his days. It takes a lot of wisdom. It takes a lot of working on yourself to I think be that confident, and to wear. I think Michael does. I would say he wears his magnificence lightly, which I love too. Which probably comes down to the eliminating the ego. So Michael, it's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure being with you today.
That's great. And check out onepeopleoneplanet.com. Next week we've got Will Parks on the show. Will is going to talk about gracious leadership with us, and Will has been working all over the world with UNICEF. He runs UNICEF in Cambodia at the moment, and is another highly inspiring connection that you're going to just love, I think, to meet and learn from. So if you've got any questions or comments, so chris@chriscooper.co.uk. Have a wonderful week. Just go away and have a think. There's six amazing principles there, and each one of those has the opportunity to change and impact your life and potentially it really impact the lives of others. So I would make note of those and get hold of that book and take care, everybody. Go and live and be happy, and help by lifting up others in the process.